Henry VIII always dreamed of a son to carry on his name. But when that dream slipped away, it broke more than his heart. It broke a kingdom. What followed was not just anger, but a transformation. Henry became a new man, and his obsession would change history forever. It was the summer of 1509, and England waited for its new king. He was only 18, but Henry Tudor, now Henry VIII, looked like the perfect ruler. Tall, handsome, strong, and full of charm, he could ride, hunt, sing, and debate. To his people, he seemed like a prince from a storybook. And on June 11th in Greenwich Palace, he was about to marry Catherine of Aragon, the woman who would soon change his life and his kingdom forever. Catherine was no ordinary bride. She was the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabella of Spain, the rulers who had united their country and sent Columbus across the sea. At 23, she was older than Henry. She was calm, smart, and deeply religious. But she carried a secret that made some in England uncomfortable. Years before, she had been married to Henry's older brother, Prince Arthur. Arthur had died young, and Catherine swore their marriage had never been physical. The Pope believed her and gave special permission for her to marry Henry. Without that, the union would have been against church law. The wedding was filled with splendor. Rich tapestries hung from the walls, golden cups sparkled in the sunlight, and the scent of roasted meat drifted through the halls. But in the shadows, people whispered. They remembered Arthur's words after his wedding night, "I have been all night in Spain." Whether true or not, the boast left a cloud that hung over Catherine and Henry. Henry walked proudly through the ceremony dressed in shining cloth of gold. To his advisor, Thomas Wolsey, he whispered, "Today, my reign begins." Wolsey bowed and said, "Majesty, with this marriage, the Tudors take their place among Europe's great houses." Henry looked every inch like a king, but inside, he could not shake the ghost of his brother. That night, tradition demanded the couple be escorted to their room with cheers and jokes. When the door closed, silence fell. Catherine stood in a white silk gown, calm and steady. Henry, suddenly unsure of himself, remembered Arthur. Catherine softly reminded him she had never been touched. Arthur had been too sick. Henry nodded, but the thought crushed him. The pressure was too much. That night, he failed to consummate the marriage. Catherine reassured him gently, "We are young. There is time." But to Henry, it felt like shame. He stormed out, swearing no one would ever know. Yet that one night planted a wound in his pride. In the years ahead, that wound would shape his every choice. In time, Henry overcame his doubt. He and Catherine shared a true marriage. Soon she was pregnant, and hope filled the court. But tragedy struck again and again. Her first pregnancy ended in miscarriage. Then, in 1511, she gave birth to a son. Bells rang, festivals were held, and Henry declared it a sign of God's favor. But the child lived only 52 days. Grief covered the palace. Catherine turned to prayer. Henry threw himself into hunting, music, and constant praise from others. Still, every new pregnancy ended in sorrow. Only one child lived. A daughter. Mary, born in 1516. She was strong and beloved, but Henry longed for a son. As Catherine aged, her chances for more children faded. Henry grew bitter. He recalled a passage from the Bible. "If a man shall take his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. They shall be childless." He told Wolsey, "Perhaps God punishes me. 20 years and only one daughter. Where is my son?" And then, Henry's eyes fell on Anne Boleyn. Anne was nothing like Catherine. She was sharp, confident, and raised in the glamorous French courts. She carried herself with charm and wit, but she also had pride. When Henry pursued her, she refused. "My honor is worth more than a night in your bed," she told him. Henry, shocked by her boldness, became obsessed. Anne accepted his letters, his gifts, and his love. But only with one condition. If Henry wanted her, it had to be as his wife. Catherine had to go. This began what history remembers as the King's Great Matter. For years, Henry begged for his marriage to Catherine to be annulled. He claimed it was cursed from the start, that marrying his brother's widow was against God's law. Catherine stood firm. In front of nobles and bishops, she knelt before Henry and declared, "I am your true wife. I was a virgin when I came to you." The people admired her bravery. Henry boiled with anger. Wolsey tried to sway the Pope, but Catherine's nephew, Emperor Charles V of Spain, was the most powerful man in Europe. With the Pope under his control, Henry's petitions were always delayed. Anne whispered new ideas to Henry. Reformers in Europe said kings should rule their churches, not Rome. "Why look to the Pope?" she asked. "You are king by God's will. The answer is here in England." Finally, in 1534, Henry made his move. He broke from Rome and declared himself supreme head of the Church of England. Every subject had to swear loyalty or face death. Monasteries were closed, treasures taken, lands sold. Those who resisted, like Sir Thomas More, were executed. At the scaffold, More's last words echoed, "I die the king's good servant, but God's first." Anne became queen. In 1533, she gave birth, not to the son Henry craved, but to a daughter, Elizabeth. Anne promised more children, but each new pregnancy ended in miscarriage. Her enemies grew stronger. Even Thomas Cromwell, once her ally, turned against her. In 1536, Anne was accused of adultery, treason, and even relations with her brother. She denied everything. On the day of her execution, she spoke calmly to the crowd. "Never was there a more noble prince than Henry." A French swordsman struck once, and her life ended. Henry wore white the next day and declared himself free. Weeks later, he married Jane Seymour. Jane was quiet, obedient, and gentle. Henry adored her. And in 1537, she gave him what he had waited for all his life, a son. Prince Edward was born. Henry wept with joy. But 12 days later, Jane died. Henry was heartbroken. She was the only wife he truly loved. From then on, his decline was clear. Once fit and strong, Henry became obese and crippled by ulcers. His rages terrified everyone around him. He divorced Anne of Cleves, mocking her looks. He married Catherine Howard, a teenager. But when her affairs came to light, he sent her to the scaffold. His sixth wife, Catherine Parr, was wise and cautious. She soothed Henry's temper, cared for his health, and even helped bring Mary and Elizabeth back into the line of succession. She nearly lost her life to accusations of heresy, but her quick words saved her. By the end, Henry was nearly 400 pounds. He had to be moved by machines and constantly in pain. Yet his will remained iron. On January 28, 1547, Henry VIII died at Whitehall Palace, at age 55. He was buried beside Jane Seymour. His 9-year-old son Edward became king, but died shortly after. Mary followed, bringing back Catholic rule and earning the name Bloody Mary, and then Elizabeth rose to the throne. For 44 years, she led England into its golden age. The great irony is clear. Henry tore apart his kingdom, defied the Pope, and sent wives and friends to their deaths, all for a son. Yet, it was Elizabeth, the daughter of Anne Boleyn, who gave England its greatest age. And perhaps it all began that first night. A young king, haunted by his brother's ghost, failed in his marriage. From that wound grew an obsession for heirs, for power, for control. It drove him to change his kingdom, his church, and history itself. As one writer later said, "The ways of history are as twisted as the human heart." Few hearts were more troubled than that of Henry VIII, the king undone by the ghost of his wedding night.